The year is 353 BCE, and in the marble halls of a magnificent palace overlooking the azure waters of the Aegean Sea, a woman sits beside the deathbed of the most powerful man in Asia Minor. Artemisia II, queen of Caria, watches as her husband and brother Mausolus, the satrap who transformed their kingdom into a rival to the great powers of Greece and Persia, draws his final breath. But this is not the end of their story. It is the beginning of the most extravagant funeral monument ever conceived, a tomb so magnificent that it would give its name to every great burial monument that followed. A mausoleum. Welcome to the extraordinary tale of the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. This is the story of how grief and ambition combined to create a monument that redefined what was possible in architecture and sculpture. For over 15 centuries, this colossal tomb dominated the skyline of Halicarnassus, proclaiming to the world the glory of a dynasty that dared to challenge empires. It survived Alexander's conquests, weathered Roman rule, and stood tall through the rise of Christianity, only to be brought low not by war or earthquake, but by medieval knights who needed its stones to build a castle. This is a story of love transcending death, of artistic genius pushed to its absolute limits, and of how a single monument could capture the imagination of the ancient world and influence architecture for millennia. But most of all, it's the story of 2 remarkable rulers who refused to let death diminish their legacy, creating instead a testament to human achievement that would outlast the civilization that built it. Our story begins not with death, but with a vision of power that would reshape the Eastern Mediterranean. Mausolus was no ordinary provincial governor. Born into the Hecatomnid dynasty that had ruled Caria for generations, he inherited a strategically crucial territory at the crossroads of Greek and Persian civilizations. But where his ancestors had been content to serve as Persian vassals, Mausolus dreamed of something grander, an independent Carian empire that could stand as an equal among the great powers of his age. When Mausolus became satrap around 377 BCE, Caria was already wealthy from its position controlling vital sea routes between the Aegean and the Eastern Mediterranean. But wealth alone wasn't enough for Mausolus's ambitions. He needed a capital that would announce Carian power to the world, a city that could rival Athens, Rhodes, or even the great Persian capitals. His choice fell upon Halicarnassus, an ancient Greek colony with a magnificent natural harbor and a history stretching back to the Bronze Age. The Halicarnassus that Mausolus inherited was already notable as the birthplace of Herodotus, the father of history. But the city Mausolus would create was something entirely new, a carefully planned metropolis that combined the best of Greek architectural sophistication with the wealth and grandeur of Persian imperial style. He rebuilt the harbor to accommodate the largest ships of his era, constructed a palace complex that rivaled anything in the Persian Empire, and filled the city with temples, theaters, and public buildings that proclaimed Carian prosperity to every visitor. But Mausolus's greatest innovation was not architectural, it was dynastic. In a bold move that shocked both Greeks and Persians, he married his own sister Artemisia II, following the ancient Persian royal tradition rather than Greek custom. This wasn't merely a political alliance, but a declaration of independence from both Greek and Persian cultural expectations. Mausolus and Artemisia ruled as co-monarchs, with Artemisia taking an active role in government that was unprecedented in the Greek world but common in Eastern monarchies. The royal couple's partnership extended far beyond mere administration. Together, They developed a comprehensive strategy for transforming Caria from a Persian dependency into a major regional power. They invested heavily in naval construction, creating a fleet that could challenge Athenian or Rhodian naval supremacy. They established diplomatic relations with Greek city-states, Egyptian pharaohs, and even Celtic chieftains, building a network of alliances that span the known world. Most importantly, Mausolus and Artemisia understood the power of cultural prestige. They recruited the greatest artists and architects of their age to work on projects throughout Caria. Greek sculptors, Persian engineers, Egyptian astronomers, and Phoenician craftsmen all found employment in the Carian court. The kingdom became a melting pot of cultural traditions, producing an artistic synthesis that was uniquely Carian while drawing on the best techniques from across the Mediterranean world. The economic foundation for these ambitious projects came from Mausolus's masterful exploitation of Caria's geographical advantages. He expanded the kingdom's control over coastal cities, each of which contributed to the royal treasury through carefully negotiated trade agreements rather than harsh taxation. He built roads that connected inland mining sites to coastal ports, dramatically increasing the efficiency of resource extraction and transport. Most innovatively, he established Halicarnassus as a free port, where merchants from across the Mediterranean could trade without the heavy taxes imposed by other major cities. This economic strategy proved brilliantly successful. By the 360s BCE, Caria had become one of the wealthiest regions in the eastern Mediterranean. The royal treasury overflowed with gold, silver, precious stones, and exotic goods from across the known world. But Mausolus and Artemisia didn't hoard this wealth. They invested it in projects that would enhance Carian prestige and attract even more talent and trade to their kingdom. The couple's greatest challenge came from the traditional powers that surrounded them. Athens viewed Carian naval expansion as a threat to its own maritime empire. Persia worried that Mausolus's semi-independence might inspire other satraps to rebellion. Various Greek city-states saw Caria's wealth as an opportunity for profitable piracy or conquest. Yet through skillful diplomacy, strategic alliances, and the judicious use of military force, Mausolus managed to maintain Carian independence while avoiding catastrophic warfare. Perhaps the most telling example of Mausolus's political acumen was his handling of the social war between Athens and its rebellious allies in the 350s BCE. Rather than choosing sides, Mausolus provided limited support to both factions while ensuring that neither gained decisive advantage. This strategy kept potential enemies fighting each other rather than uniting against Caria, while positioning the kingdom as an indispensable mediator in Eastern Mediterranean politics. As Mausolus entered his 50s, he began contemplating his legacy. He had transformed Caria from a Persian dependency into a major regional power. He had created a capital city that rivaled the greatest metropolises of the ancient world. He had established diplomatic and trade relationships that spanned 3 continents. But he faced a problem common to all great rulers: how to ensure that his achievements would outlast his own life. The solution Mausolus conceived was characteristically ambitious. Rather than building a conventional tomb, he would create a monument so magnificent that it would become a pilgrimage site for travelers from across the Mediterranean. This tomb would not merely house his remains. It would serve as a permanent embassy for Carian civilization, proclaiming the kingdom's cultural achievements to future generations. The project would combine the latest innovations in architecture, sculpture, and engineering to create something entirely unprecedented in scale and artistic sophistication. Planning for the tomb began around 367 BCE, shortly after Mausolus had consolidated his control over Caria. The project required the recruitment of the greatest artistic talents available anywhere in the Mediterranean world. Mausolus's agents scoured Greece, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and even Celtic territories, seeking artists whose skills matched the royal couple's enormous ambitions. The resulting team represented the most concentrated collection of artistic genius ever assembled for a single project. The architectural supervision was entrusted to Pythias of Priene, already famous for his work on the Temple of Athena Polias. Pythias was not merely an architect, but a theorist whose writings on proportion and design would influence building for centuries. Assisting him was Satyros, a master sculptor whose understanding of how architectural and sculptural elements could be integrated made him the perfect partner for such an ambitious project. But the true stars of the project were the four greatest sculptors of the age: Leochares, Bryaxis, Timotheus, and Scopas. Each was already renowned throughout the Greek world for works that had redefined what was possible in marble carving. Bringing them together for a single project was unprecedented and potentially dangerous, given the artistic egos involved. Yet Mausolus's diplomatic skills, refined through decades of international negotiation, proved equal to managing even these titanic personalities. The collaborative process established for the Mausoleum was revolutionary. Rather than having a single master artist control the entire project, each sculptor was assigned responsibility for one side of the building. They would work simultaneously but independently, with regular meetings to ensure stylistic coherence. This approach allowed each artist to work at full creative capacity while contributing to a unified whole, a management technique that would be copied by major artistic projects for centuries to come. The site chosen for the Mausoleum was equally significant. Rather than placing the tomb in a separate necropolis outside the city, Mausolus decided to locate it in Halicarnassus's center, connected to the main agora by a magnificent staircase. This placement made the tomb an integral part of the city's daily life, rather than a separate memorial space. Citizens would encounter the monument constantly, making Mausolus's memory a permanent part of Halicarnassian civic identity. Construction began with the most challenging aspect of the project: creating foundations capable of supporting an unprecedented weight. The tomb would be built on a high podium containing the actual burial chamber, with massive marble superstructure rising above. The engineering challenges were immense. The podium alone would require thousands of tons of perfectly fitted marble blocks, while the upper levels would need to support not only their own weight, but also dozens of colossal statues and relief sculptures. Pythias's solution combined Greek mathematical precision with Persian engineering grandeur. The foundation was constructed using interlocking marble blocks of various sizes, each carefully calculated to distribute weight while providing maximum stability. The burial chamber itself was carved directly into the bedrock, then enclosed within the marble podium structure. This design ensured that the tomb itself would survive even if the superstructure was damaged, while providing a solid base for the architectural elaboration above. The podium measured approximately 38 by 32 meters, making it larger than most Greek temples. But size was only part of the design's impact. The entire base was surrounded by a sculptural frieze depicting battles between Greeks and Amazons, a theme that connected Halicarnassus to the legendary past while demonstrating the sculptor's ability to create narrative art on an unprecedented scale. This frieze alone contained hundreds of figures, each carved with individual character and expression. Above the podium rose a colonnade of 36 Ionic columns, each standing over 12 meters high. These columns supported not a conventional roof, but a stepped pyramid containing 24 levels that rose to a height matching the colonnade below. The mathematical precision required to create this hybrid Greek-Eastern architectural form pushed ancient engineering to its limits. Each step had to be perfectly calculated to support the weight of the levels above while maintaining the visual harmony of the overall composition. The crowning element was perhaps the most audacious aspect of the entire project. A colossal statue group showing Mausolus and Artemisia riding a four-horse chariot. This sculpture was over 6 meters high and required unprecedented technical skill to ensure it could withstand wind loads while maintaining perfect balance. The chariot wheels alone were over 2 meters in diameter, giving some sense of the monument's overwhelming scale. But the mausoleum's true innovation lay not in any single element, but in its integration of architectural and sculptural components. Every surface of the building was decorated with relief carvings or freestanding statues. The spaces between columns contained life-sized figures of Carian nobles, Greek heroes, and Persian satraps, a cosmopolitan pantheon that reflected Caria's position at the crossroads of civilizations. The pyramid steps were populated with lions, mythical creatures, and more human figures, creating a populated architectural landscape unlike anything seen before or since. The sculptural program was both aesthetically magnificent and politically sophisticated. By depicting Greek heroes alongside Persian nobles and Carian aristocrats, the monument proclaimed the kingdom's equal status with the great powers of the age. The Amazon frieze explicitly connected Halicarnassus to Greek heroic legend, while the Persian-style pyramid asserted Caria's Eastern imperial connections. The overall message was clear. Caria belonged to both worlds and was subservient to neither. The technical challenges of creating this sculptural forest were immense. Each statue had to be carved from single blocks of marble, then somehow lifted into position without damaging either the sculpture or the building structure. The relief friezes required unprecedented precision in fitting together individual panels, while maintaining narrative and stylistic continuity across hundreds of meters of carved surface. The metalwork, bronze weapons, horse tack, and decorative elements had to be designed for attachment to marble surfaces while maintaining structural integrity over centuries of weather exposure. Even more challenging was coordinating the work of dozens of master craftsmen while maintaining artistic coherence. Each of the 4 primary sculptors had distinctive styles that had to be harmonized within the overall design. The relief sculptors working on the friezes had to match their figure proportions and carving techniques to the work of the master sculptors above. The architectural decorators responsible for column capitals, moldings, and other ornamental elements had to ensure their work complemented rather than competed with the figural sculpture. The project's organizational complexity rivaled that of major military campaigns. Marble had to be quarried from multiple sources: Pentelic marble from Attica for its fine quality, local Halicarnassus stone for bulk construction, exotic colored marbles for accent work. Each type required different quarrying techniques and transport methods. The logistics of moving thousands of tons of stone from quarries to the construction site challenged the capabilities of ancient transport technology. The painting and surface finishing of the completed sculpture represented yet another layer of complexity. Ancient marble sculpture was typically painted in realistic colors, and the mausoleum's figures were no exception. This meant coordinating not only sculptors and architects, but also master painters whose work would determine the monument's final visual impact. The painting process alone probably required several years, as each figure needed individual attention to achieve the level of finish appropriate for a royal monument. When Mausolus died in 353 BCE, the tomb was not yet complete, but enough progress had been made that his body could be interred in the prepared burial chamber. Artemisia II inherited not only the Carian throne, but also responsibility for completing her husband's monumental vision. Rather than scaling back the project to save resources, she expanded it, adding additional sculptural elements and increasing the lavishness of the decorative program. Artemisia's continuation of the project was both a labor of love and a shrewd political decision. The tomb had become a symbol of Carian independence and cultural achievement. Abandoning it would have suggested weakness and diminished the kingdom's international prestige. By completing and even enhancing Mausolus's vision, Artemisia demonstrated that Caria remained a major power capable of grand gestures that rivaled anything produced by Greek city-states or Persian satrapies. The queen's personal involvement in the project went far beyond mere financial support. Ancient sources suggest that she regularly visited the construction site, consulting with the master craftsmen and even suggesting modifications to the decorative program. Her intimate knowledge of her husband's intentions, combined with her own sophisticated artistic judgment, ensured that the completed monument would truly reflect both rulers' vision. Tragically, Artemisia herself died in 351 BCE, just 2 years after her husband, and shortly before the mausoleum's completion. Her body was interred alongside Mausolus's in the tomb chamber, fulfilling the couple's intention to rest together for eternity. The monument was finished under the supervision of their successors, but it remained fundamentally a testament to the love and ambition of the royal couple who had conceived it. The completed mausoleum stood approximately 45 meters high, making it one of the tallest buildings in the ancient world. Its visual impact was overwhelming, a white marble mountain rising from the heart of Halicarnassus, visible from ships miles out at sea, and dominating the city's skyline from every direction. The building combined the mathematical precision of Greek architecture with the grandiose scale of Persian imperial monuments, creating something that was uniquely Carian while drawing on the best traditions of both civilizations. The monument's influence on ancient architecture was immediate and lasting. The combination of architectural and sculptural elements became a standard feature of prestigious buildings throughout the Hellenistic world. The use of multiple master artists working collaboratively was copied for major projects across the Mediterranean. Even the specific architectural elements, the podium base, colonnade middle section, and pyramidal top, became standard components of monumental tomb design. But the mausoleum was more than just an architectural influence. It became a pilgrimage destination that drew visitors from across the known world. Ancient travel writers consistently ranked it among the most impressive sites in the Mediterranean, praising both its artistic achievement and its emotional impact. The tomb served its intended function as a permanent embassy for Carian civilization, introducing visitors to the cultural sophistication of a kingdom that many had never heard of. The monument also functioned as a center of hero cult worship, with Mausolus and Artemisia venerated as semi-divine figures who continued to protect and bless their kingdom after death. Regular sacrifices were offered at the tomb, and the site became associated with miraculous healings and prophetic dreams. This religious function added another layer to the monument's significance, making it not merely a work of art, but a living center of spiritual activity. As the centuries passed, the mausoleum witnessed the rise and fall of multiple empires. Alexander the Great's conquest of the Persian Empire brought Greek cultural influence to new heights, but the tomb remained fundamentally Carian in character. The Roman conquest of Halicarnassus in 129 BCE initially threatened the monument, but Roman appreciation for Greek artistic achievement ensured its preservation. Roman writers consistently praised the tomb as one of the world's greatest artistic achievements, and Roman artists studied its techniques for centuries. The rise of Christianity posed new challenges for the mausoleum, as it had for all pagan monuments. However, the tomb's function as an artistic masterpiece rather than an active religious center helped it survive the destruction that befell many ancient temples and shrines. Christian authorities could appreciate the monument's technical achievements while ignoring its religious associations, allowing it to continue serving as a symbol of human artistic capability. The mausoleum's decline began not with religious persecution or natural disaster, but with the gradual economic decline of Halicarnassus itself. As trade routes shifted and new cities rose to prominence, the ancient Carian capital lost its strategic importance. The resources necessary to maintain such a massive and complex monument became increasingly difficult to secure. Earthquakes in the medieval period damaged the structure, and repairs became less and less adequate. The final blow came in the 15th century, when the Knights of St. John established their base at Bodrum, the medieval name for Halicarnassus, and needed building materials for their fortress. The tumbled ruins of the mausoleum provided a convenient source of pre-cut marble blocks, which were systematically quarried from the ancient monument for use in medieval military architecture. Ironically, the very stones that had proclaimed Carian glory for over a millennium were recycled into fortifications designed to defend European Christian interests against Ottoman expansion. The rediscovery of the mausoleum's archaeological remains in the 1850s sparked intense international interest in the monument's reconstruction. British excavations recovered thousands of sculptural fragments, architectural elements, and decorative details that had been buried for centuries or built into later structures. The most spectacular discoveries included colossal statues traditionally identified as Mausolus and Artemisia themselves, relief panels from the Amazon frieze, and architectural fragments that allowed scholars to reconstruct the monument's original appearance with reasonable accuracy. These archaeological investigations revealed the monument's sophisticated construction techniques and artistic achievements. The quality of the sculptural work proved to equal anything produced in classical Athens, while the architectural innovation demonstrated engineering capabilities that wouldn't be matched until the Renaissance. The discovery of painted fragments showed that the monument had been brilliantly colored, creating visual effects that purely white marble could never achieve. Modern scholarship has continued to reveal new aspects of the mausoleum's significance. Art historians have traced its influence on architectural developments throughout the Hellenistic and Roman periods. Archaeological investigations have uncovered evidence of the monument's role as a religious center and pilgrimage destination. Historical research has revealed the sophisticated political and cultural context that made such an ambitious project possible. Perhaps most significantly, recent research has emphasized the mausoleum's role as an early example of cultural globalization. The monument brought together artistic traditions from across the ancient world, creating something that was simultaneously local and international. This synthesis reflected the cosmopolitan character of Hellenistic civilization, while maintaining distinctly Carian elements that celebrated local identity within a broader cultural framework. The mausoleum's legacy extends far beyond its influence on ancient architecture. The word mausoleum entered dozens of languages as the standard term for any grand funerary monument, ensuring that Mausolus's name would be remembered long after his kingdom disappeared from history. From the Taj Mahal to Lenin's tomb, from Grant's tomb to the Pantheon in Paris, major funerary monuments continue to draw inspiration from the architectural and artistic principles established at Halicarnassus over 2 millennia ago. The monument also represents one of humanity's earliest examples of international artistic collaboration on a massive scale. The successful coordination of Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and local Carian artistic traditions demonstrated that cultural differences could be transcended through shared commitment to artistic excellence. This lesson remains relevant in our own globalized world, where major projects routinely require collaboration across cultural and national boundaries. Today, visitors to Bodrum can see only scattered foundations and a few recovered sculptural fragments of the monument that once dominated the ancient Mediterranean skyline. But the mausoleum's true legacy lies not in its physical remains, but in its demonstration of what becomes possible when vision, resources, and artistic genius combine in pursuit of transcendent achievement. In an age when most rulers built for military conquest or political advantage, Mausolus and Artemisia built for beauty, for memory, and for the eternal human desire to create something that will outlast our own brief lives. The story of the mausoleum at Halicarnassus reminds us that the greatest monuments arise not from conquest or compulsion, but from love. Love for beauty, love for excellence, and love for those whose memory we seek to preserve. In creating their tomb, Mausolus and Artemisia gave the world a gift that transcended their own time and place, establishing standards of artistic achievement that continue to inspire us today. Their monument may be lost, but their vision of what becomes possible when human creativity is given unlimited scope remains as powerful today as it was over 2,000 years ago.